Hello, America. Welcome to the Junto Podcast, where we promote the practical applications of critical thinking and bold creativity. I'm your host, Edgar Mills. Thank you for joining us. Hey, America. Welcome back to episode 59. Thanks for sticking with me. I really do appreciate all you people. But I don't get too much feedback, and I would like to. Maybe I'm just not controversial enough, I guess. Or maybe I'm not juicy enough. I don't know. Anyway, I would appreciate your feedback. I'm going to pause here for a moment. Oh, man. All right. Well, I can hear myself in the mic, which I normally don't, and it's kind of weird, but I'm going to carry on. In previous episodes, I talked about things like the disproportionate numbers of black men involved in Airfinger's quote, gun violence. I talked about importing Islamic extreme culture and behaviors. And those things are very real, and they should be openly and honestly discussed for sure. But today I'm going to target another group, and it's white dudes. Now, look, I'm not trying to assign any collective white guilt or any whataboutisms or any crap like that. But I was compelled to look up what crime in America are predominantly white male driven or committed. And I've asked different people this question, and I'd get different answers. Well, the answer that I landed on, and this is statistical numbers that bear it out, is DUI, drunk driving. Now, I know, well, we'll get into it, but culturally, drinking is normal in America. That's the thing. It's just normal. And we'll get into that. But we'll get into it. DUI. Yeah. And the reason I did this is not to equally crap on different races to, exonerate myself for critiquing the blacks or the Muslims. Now, I did it to make a point that one, every demographic has bad apples, no matter what. Two, if I'm going to be honest and consistent, I have to call out, well, the crime or the badness where it is. And I have to apply equal standards to it. I don't think it's okay for white dudes to DUI. And I don't think it's okay for black dudes or Muslim dudes or any other dudes, right? I don't think it's okay. But the reason DUI came up is because there's significant numbers still. Now, I remember, I want to say in the 90s, there was a big, giant campaign, against DUI, and friends don't let friends drive drunk and that kind of thing. And I didn't look at like long-term numbers on it, but what we're going to look at here right now is numbers from, 2024. Now, first, there is self-reported or survey data from the FBI. And what those surveys and that self-reporting showed was that white men openly admit to the to drunk driving and higher numbers than anyone else. And then I'm going to make a little comparison. And that little comparison is I'm going to compare firearm homicides and firearm accidents, death from firearm accidents. And I'm going to compare those to DUI numbers. And I will start with the number of intentional homicides by firearm in 2024 was about 15,000. And that's a lot. The number of accidental death by firearm in 2024, about 450. Yep, 3 digits, 450 deaths. Okay, in 2024, how many deaths by DUI were there? 12,000. Yeah, 12,000. And we can assume every DUI, though, it's guilt simply by being drunk, but they're clearly accidental, right? So if you compare accidental firearm deaths, it's a crazy disparity. But even with intentional homicides, the disparity is still only about 3,000. So my point to this is that DUI is nearly as big an epidemic as, quote, gun violence, unquote. Yeah. But we don't hear about it. Nobody carries on about it. There has been in the past campaigns, and there's still some little groups out there that focus on that, but it's not nearly as prevalent. And if you live in the city, and you probably say, oh, well, that problem's been solved, Edgar, but the numbers don't bear out. And we'll talk about geographic stuff here in a minute. So, and the numbers on those, so here we go on the numbers. Across the board, the numbers are overwhelmingly male, right? Yeah, overwhelmingly male, like over 80%. But in the DUI crashes, the numbers from white male drivers are somewhere in the neighborhood of 80%, and that's a lot. And obviously the age range, somewhere from about 21 to 34, dominate. Versus homicide, right? The white numbers on homicide are about 40% of all homicide. So, yeah, that goes back to the podcast where I talked about, air fingers quote, gun violence. So there's high representation there. Why is that? It's crazy. I don't know. Well, we'll see. Let's look at it. Let's examine it. Let's figure out, why do white dudes think it's okay to drink and drive? Well, I can tell you now, I've done it, folks. I have drank booze and gotten behind the wheel of a car, and it was 100% immaturity. Well, immaturity in that I thought I was indestructible and probably lacked the capacity to look beyond myself and think, what if? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? That was me personally. So white males do not dominate DUI arrests or death by DUI because the police target white dudes. I would say white dudes have the luxury, and I'm going to say the word privilege, of not being profiled, generally speaking. But again, surveys and stuff like that show that, well, just in general, alcohol consumption, but also binge drinking is highest among white males. Yeah, white males. So that's a thing. And one of the reasons, I think, is, well, social drinking. That's what I call myself. I'm a social drinker. And here's the way I do it. If I have a course on a Saturday, maybe that evening, my son and I will go and have 1 or 2 pints. Yeah, that's it. I call that social drinking. And social drinking in America has been glorified and romanticized throughout American culture. Our founding fathers drank. If you look at the volumes of alcohol that they consumed during their various meetings, especially pre-revolution, they were gathering at the pub. Yeah, booze. It's just a way. It's a European thing for sure, and it's been glorified, romanticized throughout our entire existence. And and let's say in urban life, urban. Now look, urban is not synonymous with ghetto. Understand, cities are vast, thriving little ecosystems there. And in the urban elitist cultures, they have these. They go to some high-end, swanky, nightclubs or like private clubs. They have their little soirees, or they'll have galas where it's champagne and whatever, and whatever else it is rich people do. Usually involves booze, high-end booze to be sure, but booze nonetheless. What about rural and suburban America? Well, one, rural and suburban America are largely white demographically. But where does social life happen there? Yeah, it happens at bars. You have, in some states, college sports, right? You have tailgate parties, like football is a big deal, and people will drink into obliteration. Or hunting clubs where the good old boys gather out in the cabin. House parties. Yeah. When you were in high school, how many house parties you go to? And it was a bunch of teenagers, but somebody's, 22-year-old brother bought, would go and pick up the booze. Yeah. And then of course, the average working man, have a couple of beers after work. It's so normal. But for some reason, white males are most likely to drive after, more than 3 drinks. So, usually 1 or 2, you're not near the legally impaired limit. And okay, that's legally impaired. But then if you're a thick-necked dude, you can probably drink 4 beers before even catching a buzz. So you don't feel drunk, but you might be legally impaired. You don't even feel buzzed, but you might be legally impaired. So there's that disparity, right? Well, yeah, I had a couple drinks, but I wasn't drunk. Well, the numbers say you are. And that's law. That's what the law is and does. And then what's another thing, about, and I'm talking about rural and suburban areas. Yeah, public transportation is nearly non-existent. And suburbs and rural spaces aren't set up like 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 cities, like metropolises where everything is walkable, or there's a Uber on every corner or a Waymo or whatever. So like even Uber out in the rural spaces is lean, man. Like, yeah, it's not so it's you and your car is usually the prime way to get home. And here in Rome, I see there's taxi cabs still. But man, those taxi cabs look like you're going to catch some lung cancer when you get inside because the driver's sitting there chain smoking and the car looks like it's about to break down at any moment. Anyway, so you have lesser options out in these suburban rural spaces. Now, urban and metro, you have more options. Yeah, that's true. And I can remember a good thing When I was in the military, especially in the 82nd, well, and 10th group did it too. If you were out drinking and you got hammered, you could call the battalion. They had like a pickup, guy cruise out there and pick up a few dudes and bring them home. Yeah, I mean, that's good. That is good. You get a free ride home. And some people didn't trust it. Like, oh, they're just gonna hammer you for getting drunk and using the service. Well, that's what the service is for, man. They would rather you call at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. than get a DUI. So even in the military, they were trying to figure out ways to help curb that. But yeah, Uber, that's the magic in metro and urban type areas for sure. And out there in the rural spaces and suburban space, right? Distance is your enemy. Yeah. Even some of the services, like you got little shuttles in town and things, but they ain't going to drive you 15 miles out in the sticks. So that distance gives you more opportunity to make bad decisions. So that's that, right? And then another high number demographic is specifically, now they didn't define affluent, but affluent white male teenagers have exceedingly high numbers of drinking and driving. Yeah. And we'll get to that in a minute. There's a lot of reasons, right? There are zero excuses, but there are a lot of reasons why people do the things they do. And so where does the alcohol, never mind just the social drinking, never mind that. Now there's potential alcoholism, and for whatever reason, childhood trauma, whatever it is. My dad was an alcoholic. My granddad was whatever it is. And then you have sort of a culture, right? Let's look at white male, predominantly white male community. In the Appalachians, right? What's it known for? Moonshine, man. Yeah. You hit 3-4 swigs of moonshine, you're beyond the legal limit. I can tell you that. And then what about like the Midwest, right? You got working class dudes working in factories and steel mills and shit. And what is it? Yeah, that's you stop at the pub on the way home, man. And then there's sort of generational or hereditary, alcoholism. Or there's the stoic tough guy, kind of drinker. I drink nothing but 20-year-old scotch. And you sit at the bar and you sip on 20-year-old scotch, and then 4 scotches down, you're still stoic and tough, but now you're absolutely drunk. You might not cause a scene, but that don't mean you're not drunk. And if you get behind the wheel, yeah, who knows? So these are a lot of looks at it, right? These are all things that kind of explain the risk, but they don't explain the decision making. And here's the thing, your decision making is compromised because of the booze. And I mentioned it a little earlier, but yeah, alcoholism has a genetic sort of component from European populations, especially probably maybe Irish and Scottish and whatnot. I heard a thing yesterday, I think. Somebody said, oh yeah, he's down with the Irish flu. Hungover, Irish flu. I thought it was hilarious. Anyway, yeah, so there's that. So even biology might be a reason, but that don't give us an excuse, right? There's millions of people all across the world who are traumatized, and they never get behind the wheel of a car. It still comes down to individual agency. Mm-hmm. Now, if you want to get Christian about it, like we got sin and repentance and all that stuff. And I don't even think most Christianity hammers drinking too hard. It ain't about having a drink or two. It's about excess. That's what it's about. To where the focus becomes the booze and not, God or whatever else. But even amongst the many Christians, yeah, they're still out there drinking and driving, man. Because why? Well, I'm about to get into it, and some of the white boys are going to get upset. I think the word white, or the phrase white privilege, is thrown around too much and applied to things that it doesn't apply to way too much. But I think it applies here. In some circles, middle class and above, and especially rural circles where you got the good old boy, sort of networks or groups, there's an attitude that the DUI enforcement, the DUI law, they apply to them, to everyone else, those folks, not me. I can handle my liquor. The cops won't pull me over because I know Scott or Tim, you know what I mean? So I'm not going to get pulled over. Well, that attitude alone, how many of you out there listening to this has said that I can handle my liquor? Or have said that, well, I drive better after a few drinks because I'm more careful. That exposes a bit of that, well, we can call it soft privilege if you want, but it's privilege. You are fairly confident that you're not going to face any racial profiling. And because you're a known entity, right? You're a regular, or you grew up, all the cops, and this and that and the other. That's that soft privilege to where, well, I'm not going to get targeted. As long as I don't do anything crazy, I'll be good. That's privilege. That's privilege. Now, there are data points out there that show that white males statistically get more warnings. Or even if they end up going to court, that they get softer plea deals than minorities for similar DUI, comparatively speaking. And what that does is those warnings and those softer plea deals feeds into the problem. So it makes, the consequences of driving drunk feel like, well, it's still over there for the bad people. They didn't punish me because they know I mean well, or I'm one of them, or whatever it is. Now I'll tell you this: usually this privilege usually disappears the moment your DUI kills somebody, because your intent and your good old boy whatever became irrelevant once you murdered an innocent family with your vehicle. Now, I said usually. There have been cases where still somebody well-to-do, affluent, deep pockets are able to buy their way down to lesser punishment, thus escaping justice for the people who've lost family to you and your ignorance. But once a drunk driver causes death, right, killing a young family or a kid on a bike, intent is completely irrelevant. Don't matter how happy you were or how anything. It don't matter. Well, I was just going home. I just live a couple miles up the road. None of that matters. None of it matters. And what I think is just and correct is that most states, they treat DUI, vehicular homicide, with very low. There's a Latin phrase called mens rea, where, or like state of mind, right? There's a very low threshold. You don't have to have ill intent. If you kill somebody while drinking, that is enough. The negligence and the recklessness alone is enough to get a conviction. They don't look at it necessarily as an accident. In your mind, it was an accident. But because you were impaired, that's your intent, right? So I didn't mean to, or it was an accident, or oh my God, they jumped out in the road. None of that cuts it. You're guilty, man. You're guilty. Now, those circumstances may, in sentencing, you may, get a slightly lesser or whatever, but intent, it's irrelevant when you're drinking or on drugs, by the way. If you are impaired. And this is good. This is proper. This is justice. You shouldn't get a free pass for taking out innocent life. You shouldn't get a free pass. The outcomes outweigh your intentions, whatever they were, even if you had no intentions, even if it was just ignorance, blissful ignorance. Yeah, innocent life. Talk about it fairly often. Innocent life is to be guarded. Innocent life is to be protected at all costs. So we're not talking about whataboutism. Well, what about white guys? What about black guys? It's not about that. I said it earlier. It's about consistency. Application of, well, the law for sure, but standards, application, expectations. How a person is acceptable behavior in public. It's acceptable to go get shit hammered at a bar. That's become commonplace. It's not acceptable to then go out and get in your car and drive away. And the consistency I'm talking about goes back to the previous episodes, right? We criticize cultural factors pretty hard that contribute to black violence. Fatherlessness, gang glorification, no snitch, gangster culture, that kind of thing. We call it out. We call out Islamic extremists and this Islamic supremacist attitude, attitude where, certain Muslim communities, they will vocally tell you they're trying to take over. If you're a non-believer, you're lesser than. We call that stuff out, as we should. It's not compatible with the United States Constitution. So we have to, with the same level of scrutiny, call out our own. Hey, it can be a social, like, does DUI have the same national implications as Islamic takeover? Nah. But what is the same? What about black violence, inner city black violence? Does DUI have the same implications as the number, however many people in Chicago get killed every weekend? Nope. But here's the thing that liberals love to say. I know I always got to bring in, slam on liberals. But they say it about guns. Well, if it saves only one life, then it's worth it. Well, what about DUI? Do we ban booze? Nah, we don't ban booze. And we shouldn't. Because why? Because it's individual responsibility. Did everybody hear that? Individual responsibility and accountability. Yep. Every group out there, every demographic lives under some kind of, friggin' dark statistical shadow, right? There's something that you can point to go, this is why this group is bad. But folks, everybody has that. So from an objectivism perspective, that it all comes down to the very simple answer. And it's the same very simple answer to many, many very complex issues. And it's that we are individuals first, period. Christianity places emphasis on personal accountability and free will. Yeah, there is no like collective salvation, right? Your group, you don't get the blanket salvation for your group. Every individual has to accept Christ. And probably a lot of people that go to church kind of feel like that's the case. I think, but that's just me talking there. But you're not in a protected class. You're not, whether it's a victim class or a protected privilege class. Now we know, folks, there's at least a 2-tiered, if not 3 or 4-tiered legal justice system, right? Rich people get away with shit that poor people don't get away with. And they are, in a way, in a protected privilege class. But that's not justice and that's not correct. It's just money will do a lot of things. And we have to hold our officials accountable for that as much as anybody else. But personal responsibility that's the great equalizer. If we hold everyone responsible for their own actions, that is the great equalizer. That is equal application of justice. So, white men aren't above the law any more than anyone else is beneath it. Drinking's a big problem in America. Drinking alcohol, and look, I'm about to say some stuff I don't know numbers on, but I think alcohol contributes to large health issues. Alcohol contributes, obviously, to excessive death by DUI. Alcohol destroys families. Alcoholism. How many college kids every year get alcohol poison? Yeah, a lot of stuff. Alcohol is, but also, look, I'm a casual drinker. I'm a social drinker. I like to go to the pub. I like the environment. A proper pub. And I like to sit and talk business or whatever over a pint of Guinness. Yeah, I like it. But like all things, and I've said this about 1 million times throughout the various podcasts, all things in moderation. That's it. So if you have a drinking problem, by no means get behind the wheel of a car. Call a taxi or ride share or Uber or a goddamn Waymo. Yeah. At least take that responsibility. If you think you're invincible, or if you're in the gutter and you're just like, oh, there's no reason to live, I'm going to drink myself into a stupor, that's fine, man. Do your thing. The minute you get behind the wheel of a car, everybody out there in the wild is subject to your, irresponsibility for sure. But potentially, you're now driving a $4,000 killing machine. Yeah. So at least don't subject other people to your misery. Teach your sons responsibility and accountability. If you're a sports dad and you're not teaching your kid young about like responsible drinking, because you're going to send them off to college. And when they go off to college, there's drinking. There's lots of it. And if they don't have a foundation, Like, never mind all the things you taught them about everything else. But if you never specifically address alcohol, they may be that date rape guy, or they may be the driver in a car load of kids going from one bar to a house party or whatever it is. Teach them about the booze. We got a catchphrase, me and my best friend Timmy. You lose with the booze. Yeah, man. Moderation, it's gotta be handled correctly. And hold your own communities and your own demographic to the same standards that we demand of other demographics. Hey, your demographic, by the way, starts with you and your friend circle. Don't let your friends be irresponsible a-holes. And if it seems offensive for you to tell your friend, hey, bro, you've had too much, you need to XYZ. Well, one, if he gets pissy about that, are you a good enough friend to stand fast? Or are you just going to be like, all right, bro, do your thing? That's what you want to say, right? All right, bro, do your thing. But that's not the good friend thing to do. That's not the good friend thing to do at all. Now, this ain't a hot topic, DUI. This ain't a hot topic, and it's not a new thing at all. Like I said, there was, I want to say in the 90s, there was a big giant push on DUI, like campaigning and government, well, lack of a better word, propaganda through like the early 2000s. And oh man, in the 82nd and in the Army in general, there was a while there, like there was DUIs every weekend. Like it seemed like the harder the campaign went, the more dudes would go out and get in trouble. Yeah, and then, careers like in the 80s and 90s, a dude get a DUI, get smoked, maybe not even possibly catch an Article 15, go on to become the battalion sergeant major, you know what I mean? And I'm not making shit up. There's plenty of old school CSMs out there with a couple DUIs under their belt. And then in a very change of the times, or you might want to say hypocritical fashion, they then, come out busting hard against DUIs and stuff. But that's another story. Anyway, what I'm saying is there was a hard, heavy campaign against it for a long time. And to think about it now, I don't think it's been that prevalent. Like, yeah, every now and again you'll see somebody had DUI, or there was a crash that killed somebody, and then it comes out a couple days later, well, yeah, their blood alcohol showed that they were drinking. But nobody goes into a friggin' homosexual panic over, oh my God, they were drink driving. We have to put an end to drunk driving. And how do you put an end to it anyway? If you guys remember, nobody remembers because we're not that old, but they tried prohibiting alcohol in the 1920s or 30s. And what became of that? Well, it lit a fire of efficiency and productivity beneath the organized crime world. The underground became prolific. Bootlegging, that's what everybody like in the Appalachians and stuff is bootlegging. My grandfather was a bootlegger. Yeah, and that industry, that's what happens when you try to outright ban a thing. The underground just thrives. And that's not what you want. You want things above board so that they're more visible. And I'm not pro regulation on that. I'm just saying if things are above board, they're easier to sort of monitor. Yeah, prohibition didn't work. And I ain't saying, I mean, like, did it create criminals? Well, yeah. As soon as a thing becomes illegal, anybody doing that thing is by default a criminal. So yes, it did create criminals. But moonshiners were brewing up the Mountain Dew there long before alcohol was prohibited. And let's go back in history just a wee bit. Every now and then I bring up the Whiskey Rebellion, and I can never get the date just right on the Whiskey Rebellion, but it was one of the very first cases of the newly formed U.S. government laying a tax against whiskey. Yeah. And that was it lasted from 1791 to 1794. So 1791, when was the Constitution ratified? Like 1789. 2 years later, the government started overreach. And so they tried to lay a federal excise tax on whiskey, and these boys in Pennsylvania wasn't having it. Yeah. And it was essentially a violent protest against taxation, and they called it the whiskey tax. Yeah. This was George Washington, folks. Yeah. So it wasn't imported booze. Any domestically produced booze was to be taxed so that they could pay for the bills on the Revolutionary War. But yeah, man, and brewing booze was in those times just as simple as a thing. That was a way of life. Yeah, because there was wheat and barley and corn everywhere, and yeah, they made whiskey, man. They made whiskey. And back then there was a lot of drinking. Yeah, a lot of drinking. So you didn't have to worry about DUI back then, though, did you? You hop on your horse. Your horse knows which way to go. That's the truth right there. A horse will take you home. Maybe we should go back to riding horses or horse-drawn carriages. Oh man, well, I got off track. I'm sorry, I got off track. Let's see if I can find where I'm at here. Yeah, white men drinking and driving. Yeah. So if you want to complain, now look. Okay, let me back up again. Sorry, you guys stay with me. Stay with me. Now I mentioned rape numbers a couple of episodes ago, and there was a higher number of white males than any other demographic, but it was like 50 something percent. So not overwhelmingly. When I started doing the research on this, I thought that's what I would find would have to do with sexual crime, but it turns out it was DUI. Which, folks, think about this for a minute. 15,000 intentional gun homicides in 2024 versus 12,000 accidental DUI deaths. Excuse me. Sorry. That's insane. That's big. That's bad, right? If you're going to make an epidemic out of gun stuff, if you're consistent and intellectually honest, you have to have the same angst and passion when talking about drinking and driving. You have to, or else, well, I don't want to say you're a hypocrite, but possibly you're definitely dishonest, and you're either ignorant willfully or, well, just ignorant unintentionally. Apply equal standards in your analysis of all things, not just the political hot buttons. Yeah. And the answer, good people, just in case you're wondering, is not to ban and regulate at all. Now, you can make consequences of crime steeper. There's a legal limit for drinking and driving. I don't know what it is. Point oh something. I ain't saying make that lower or even higher. Just make the consequence exceedingly painful, and don't give any free passes, because of privilege or demographic, and don't have all these legal loopholes. Well, Edgar, you're trying to violate people's rights. Bullshit. I'm all about individual rights. But taking another life off this planet is a very serious thing. It needs to be treated as such across the board, whether it's a gun or whether it's intoxicated driver. Yeah, that's right. All right, damn, man. I'm not trying to get fired up. So look, in the name of this consistency, I mean, if we are truth seekers, right? If we really want truth and we really want justice, not our version, not a twisted version of it, but legitimate, objective truth and justice, we have to critique all these patterns, all these statistical patterns across demographics, across crimes. We have to critique them with equal and consistent scrutiny if we are being legitimately concerned about truth and justice. Yep. All right, that's what I had. I wanted to point that out, not because I'm anti-booze. I mean, I've had my share. I used to be a hard drinker, and I have gotten behind the wheel whilst drunk. And I regret and I'm ashamed of that. And I'm sure there are many of you out there, I'm sure of it, that have done the same. I ain't telling you to go out and admit it to the world. I'm just telling you. Be responsible, and when you're out at the pub drinking, you have to consider what if. I mean, it should just be a blanket, nope, I will not drive after one or two. Whatever your body type is, whatever it is, right? Have that number. I will not drive at this point, and have a backup plan. Always have the backup plan. Always have the backup plan. Contingency planning. We talk about it all the time in different contexts. It applies here. Have a contingency. Have a pace plan. I can tell you this, I've executed pace plan also plenty of times. Go to the pub. Primary, I'm only going to have 2. Alternate, well, if I have more than 2, I will ride my bike. I used to be a bike messenger and did a lot of drinking during that time. And there were times that I had too much booze to ride my bike. That's it. I said we should ride horses because your horse knows the way home. Well, your bike don't know the way home, and it requires a significant amount of coordination to keep between the ditches, and you can very easily wander off into the middle of a street on Peachtree Street at midnight. So have a pace plan, have someone to call or some agency to call, or a Uber or whatever, a taxi, a friend. Have something. Don't be that asshole who thinks you get a free pass because you're you, for whatever reason, and then you are responsible for somebody losing their life. Don't be that. Please, for the love of God, don't be that. Because there's second and third order effects to all things. Everything. There's a ripple. And if you DUI and kill someone's young family, well, they have family members, and they may not take that too well. And the next time you are seen in public might be the last. There's second and third order effects to all things. Be responsible, even when you're drinking. Drink to be merry. And when it goes beyond that, stop and get a ride. All right. This wasn't a lecture, I guess, but it's still happening. And as you get older and more mature, you're like, God, what's wrong with these guys? I'm scrutinizing myself, right? At the same level. I was an asshole. And thank God that I wasn't I wasn't a regular drinker and driver. I mean, I'm just saying it could have happened just the same. So understand that. And that's not to be a Debbie Downer while you're sitting at the pub having a good time. That's just to say you need to have that moment of clarity when it's time to go home. Okay, all right, I've had fun. That was great. That was awesome. I want to do it again tomorrow. I don't want to end up in jail tonight. And I certainly don't want to hurt anybody else in the pursuit of my happiness or the pursuit of my misery or whatever it is. All right, God dang it. Now I'm going to stop. Not meant to be a lecture. I wanted to bring numbers to the light to people who listen to me, because I don't know what my demographics are. I can look and tell you how many people from across the world listen to my podcast. But, like, for instance, I'm sure there's a significant number of Christians listen to my podcast. But also, I'm sure that there's a significant number of heathens listening to my podcast, because I'm sure that I resonate, well, probably more with the heathens than with the Christians. But so, yeah, this might help you. This might help you just to think about it. And if you are one of those out there, there are a few who might consider me a mentor. You've heard it from me before. You lose with the booze. Don't let yourself get to that point. Don't get out of control. Make the right decision at the right moment, whether you're in your right mind or not. It's back there. The right thing is back there. So make that right decision in the right moment. And by God, if you are in Georgia and the worst case comes to the worst case, reach out and call me just as a last ditch effort, and I will get you there. All right. All right. Dang, here we go again. All right. Good people, thank you so much for listening to this. Drink and be merry by all means. Just do it responsibly. Thank you for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you. We are steadily growing week on week, and I appreciate that, and I love that. June is coming. It's right around the corner. We have a lot of things in June. We have, main thing, OSS Challenge, OSS to Green Beret Edition. And this is sponsored by Mike Pearson over at Athena Target Solutions. And he's a great human being, and he's helping us out with some prizes. Excuse me. And we are doing this in support of the Special Forces Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization, I think based in Colorado Springs, and they do great things for Gold Star families and Green Beret kids and all kinds of stuff to help guys in crisis, just all kind of great things. So as we grow, we're going to continue to support them, and as we grow, hopefully more financially than in spirit, but also in spirit. And we're going to have a Special Forces Foundation rep down at the match, which, by the way, is on June 6th. And there's plenty of spots. Look, people, for some reason, it hasn't filled up yet. So normally that's a pretty big one. So let's spread the word. It's physical, yeah, and it's a shooting event. I think it's going to be 4 robust stages, and it's a 2-gun, yeah. So there's physical stuff going on, and there's challenging shooting going on. So get out here, challenge yourself, bring friends, sign up. All right. So that's the big thing in June, but every weekend in June, there's something going on. Please go check out twoteamguys.com. Always open to schedule. So it's custom scheduling, right? No longer scheduling courses, taking courses by demand. So if you have 4 guys or more and you have a date range that looks good for you, we can probably accommodate. And of course, the juntopodcast.com. And then please go to givesendgo.com/help-a-homie-fund. That is our effort to help those who need it. Excuse me, help those in need. All right. And that's small scale. And yeah, it's small scale, but you'll be doing good things for people who just don't have access, or they're just on the cusp of total breakdown, but that little bit helps, right? This is the thing that pulls them back and gets them on the right direction. So please consider it. givesendgo.com/help-a-homie-fund. You will be blessed. Okay, good people. As always, I appreciate your feedback. Please reach out, Edgar Mills at ospreyshootingsolutions.com if you want to get in touch with me for any reason whatsoever. I love you, good people. Be safe. Take care of each other.